Success comes to those who master the art of tending their own garden. Last spring, I witnessed something remarkable that changed my entire perspective on personal growth. In a small suburban neighborhood, there lived two gardeners, each with identical plots of land, blessed with the same rich soil and equal access to sunlight and water. But their approaches couldn't have been more different. The first gardener, Tom, spent countless hours peering over his fence, watching his neighbor's garden. He'd stand there, coffee cup in hand, observing which flowers were blooming, how tall the vegetables had grown, and what techniques his neighbor used. He'd worry when his neighbor's tomatoes turned red before his, feel discouraged when the neighbor's roses bloomed first, and constantly adjust his methods based on what he saw next door. But the second gardener, Mike, took a different approach entirely. From sunrise to sunset, his attention never wavered from his own plot. He studied his soil, understanding its unique properties. He learned which corners of his garden received the most sunlight, which areas retained moisture better, and which spots needed extra care. He kept detailed notes about his plant's progress, celebrating even the smallest improvements. Just as each seed contains its own blueprint for growth, each person carries within them unique potential waiting to blossom. Your talents, abilities, and dreams are like seeds planted in fertile soil. They don't need to compete with the garden next door. They just need your consistent attention, care, and patience to flourish. No two gardens are meant to be identical, just as no two paths to success are the same. The oak tree doesn't rush its growth to catch up with the maple, and the rose doesn't compare its petals to the sunflower. Each grows according to its own nature, in its own time, reaching toward its own unique expression of beauty. The greatest trap in life isn't failure. It's the endless cycle of comparison. Let me tell you about two business owners I met in Chicago back in 1992. John and Sarah both started their marketing firms within the same month in the same city block, targeting similar clients. They had equal talent, similar backgrounds from respected universities, and the same burning desire to succeed. But that's where the similarities ended. John developed a peculiar morning routine. Each day he'd arrive at his office early, not to work on his business, but to check his competitors' website updates. He'd scroll through their client list, analyze their pricing structure, and study their latest campaigns. During client meetings, he'd constantly reference his competitors' work. Well, agency X is doing this, or our competitors are charging that. He subscribed to their newsletters, followed their social posts, and even hired people just because they had worked for his competitors. Sarah, however, took an entirely different path. When asked about a competitor, she'd smile and say, "I'm sure they're doing fine work, but I honestly don't have time to check. I'm too busy understanding our clients' needs." He spent her mornings reviewing client feedback, improving her team's skills, and developing innovative solutions to real problems. While John was studying his competitors' past successes, Sarah was creating her own future wins. The cost of comparison isn't just time, though that alone is staggering. John spent roughly 2 hours each day monitoring his competition. That's 10 hours every week, 40 hours every month, nearly 500 hours every year, the equivalent of 12 full work weeks. Watching others instead of building his own success. But the real cost runs much deeper. Every moment spent comparing yourself to others plants seeds of doubt in your mind. It creates an invisible ceiling based on what others have achieved rather than your true potential. It's like trying to drive your car while constantly looking in the rearview mirror at the traffic behind you. You'll never reach your destination that way. Let me share something fascinating. During the third year of their businesses, both John and Sarah faced a major economic downturn. Their responses couldn't have been more different. John panicked, immediately cutting his prices to match his competitors, reducing his service quality to maintain margins, and essentially starting a race to the bottom. His focus on others led him to react rather than innovate. Sarah, still focused solely on her own path, saw the downturn differently. He used this time to develop new services her clients needed, invested in her team's skills, and strengthened client relationships. While others were cutting corners, she doubled down on quality. She wasn't cheaper. She was better. 5 years after starting their businesses, the results spoke volumes. Sarah's firm had grown to serve clients across 3 states, with a team of 32 dedicated professionals. John's business, despite his constant monitoring of the competition, remained roughly the same size as when he started. The saddest part? He had no idea how many opportunities he'd missed while watching others. The opportunities lost to comparison are like ships passing in the night. You never even know they were there. While John was busy studying his competitors' past successes, he missed chances to innovate, to create new solutions, to build deeper relationships with his clients. Every hour spent analyzing others was an hour not spent developing his own unique strengths. Everything truly innovative, every genuine breakthrough in human history came from someone who stopped looking at what others were doing and dared to try something new. The Wright brothers didn't succeed by copying better horse carriages. Thomas Edison didn't create the light bulb by improving candles. They succeeded because they focused entirely on their own vision, their own experiments, their own growth. The trap of comparison is particularly dangerous because it seems productive. After all, isn't it smart to know what your competition is doing? But there's a crucial difference between occasional market awareness and constant comparison. The first informs your decisions. The second paralyzes your progress. The first is a tool. The second is a trap. Remember that spend comparing yourself to others is a moment you could have spent creating something new, learning something valuable, or moving closer to your goals. The energy you waste measuring yourself against others could power your own success if properly channeled. The time you spend worrying about others' progress could be invested in your own growth. What you focus on grows. It's not just a saying, it's a scientific fact. Research conducted at Harvard Business School tracked the careers of 1,000 professionals over a 20-year period. Those who maintained steady focus on their own development were 3 times more likely to achieve their long-term goals than those who constantly monitored their peers' progress. But numbers only tell part of the story. Let me share with you the remarkable journey of David Phillips, a restaurant owner I met in Seattle. In 1990, when every other restaurant was chasing the latest food trends and copying each other's menus, David did something different. He closed his restaurant for 2 weeks, a decision that seemed crazy to his competitors, and spent that time perfecting just one dish, slow-roasted prime rib, while other restaurants offered dozens of mediocre dishes. David focused on making one dish exceptional. He studied the science of meat preparation, tested different cooking temperatures, and worked with local farmers to source the best beef. His competitors laughed at first. You can't run a restaurant with just one specialty, they said. Today, David's restaurant has a 3-month waiting list, and he's opened 4 more locations. His secret: he never looked sideways, only forward. Consider the case of Margaret Thompson, a music teacher in Kansas. When online teaching platforms emerged, every music instructor scrambled to copy what was trending. Margaret took a different approach. She spent 6 months understanding how her students actually learned best. While others were busy checking what courses were popular, she created a teaching method specifically designed for beginner adult piano students, a group others had overlooked. Margaret didn't care that other teachers were making flashier videos or offering cheaper rates. She focused entirely on improving her method, refining her approach, and serving her specific student group. 8 years later, she's helped over 10,000 adults fulfill their dream of playing piano, all because she stayed focused on her unique path. Here's what most people don't understand about self-focus. It's not just about avoiding distractions. It's about the compound effect of daily improvement. When you focus solely on your own growth, something magical happens. Each small improvement builds on the last, creating a momentum that becomes unstoppable. Let me break this down into simple mathematics. If you improve just 1 each day, a tiny, almost invisible amount, over 1 year, you'll end up 365 better. That's not adding 1 each day. That's compounding it. The actual improvement is much more dramatic. You end up 37 times better than when you started. This is the power of focused, consistent growth. A master craftsman sharpening their tools. Each stroke of the whetstone removes a microscopic amount of metal, but over time creates a razor-sharp edge that can split a hair. This is exactly how self-focus works. Each small improvement might seem insignificant in a moment, but the cumulative effect is extraordinary. I remember talking to a carpenter who spent 30 years perfecting his craft. He told me something profound. I never worried about what other woodworkers were building. I just tried to make each piece better than my last. Today, his furniture sells for tens of thousands of dollars, not because he studied his competition, but because he studied his craft. The world's most successful individuals share this trait. They're almost obsessive about their own improvement. Take Sarah Blakely, who started Spanx. She didn't spend time analyzing other clothing manufacturers. Instead, she focused entirely on solving one specific problem. She cut the feet out of her pantyhose to create a smooth look under her clothes. While others might have been distracted by market trends or competitor products, she remained focused on perfecting her solution. This brings us to another crucial point: the relationship between self-focus and innovation. True breakthroughs rarely come from watching others. They come from deeply understanding your own work, your own challenges, your own vision. When you're not distracted by what others are doing, you notice opportunities they miss. Every major innovation in history came from someone who stopped looking at the established way of doing things. The first person to put wheels on a suitcase didn't get there by copying other luggage makers. They got there by focusing on solving a real problem. The true power of self-focus is that it allows you to see possibilities others miss. But there's more to this story. Self-focus also creates what psychologists call flow states, periods of intense productivity where time seems to disappear. When you're completely focused on your own growth, not distracted by others, you enter this state more easily. It's like a runner who breaks their personal record not by watching other runners, but by becoming completely absorbed in their own rhythm, their own breath, their own stride. Here's something remarkable about self-focus. It actually makes you more resilient to setbacks. When your measure of success is your own improvement rather than comparison to others, every day becomes an opportunity to win. Every mistake becomes a lesson rather than a defeat. Every challenge becomes a chance to grow rather than a reason to quit. I once asked a successful entrepreneur how she handled market fluctuations. Her answer was enlightening. I don't watch the market as much as I watch our customers' needs. While others panic about industry trends, I focus on serving our clients better today than we did yesterday. Everything else takes care of itself. This is the true power of self-focus. It simplifies your decisions, clarifies your path, and amplifies your results. When you're not scattered by comparison, when you're not diluted by distraction, when you're not paralyzed by what others are doing, your energy is only one place to go: forward. Knowing your own path is like having a map in the wilderness. It's the difference between walking in circles and making real progress. But here's the truth that most people miss. Your path isn't found by looking at someone else's footsteps. It's discovered by understanding your own unique set of talents, abilities, and natural inclinations. Let me tell you about Michael Chin, a young man I met in Portland. Michael spent years trying to copy successful tech entrepreneurs. He read their books, copied their habits, even tried to dress like them. But success kept slipping through his fingers. Then one day, while fixing his grandmother's computer, he had a revelation. He noticed how naturally he could explain complex technology to older adults, how patient he was with their questions, how much he enjoyed these interactions. That moment changed everything. Instead of trying to build the next social media platform like everyone else, Michael started a technology education service for seniors. He stopped measuring himself against Silicon Valley standards and started measuring himself against his own ability to serve his unique market better each day. Understanding your path begins with a simple but powerful exercise. Spend 1 week documenting everything that energizes you. Not what impresses others, not what makes the most money, but what makes you lose track of time. These moments are like nature's signposts, pointing toward your true path. Every major success story started with someone who found the intersection between what they were naturally good at and what the world needed. Henry Ford wasn't the most skilled engineer of his time, but he understood mass production better than anyone else. He focused on that strength instead of trying to compete with other automotive innovators on technical designs. Your strengths are like fingerprints, uniquely yours. But here's the challenge. Most people spend more time studying other strengths than identifying their own. They're so busy watching how others succeed that they miss their own success signals. Take Carol Martinez, a teacher in New Mexico. For years, she tried to copy the teaching methods of her more experienced colleagues. Her evaluations were good, but not great. Then she noticed something. Whenever she used storytelling in her lessons, her students became completely engaged. Instead of fighting this natural tendency and trying to teach like others, she leaned into it. Today, Carol's classroom is known throughout her district. She teaches history through storytelling, bringing past events to life in ways that textbooks never could. Her students' test scores have soared, not because she found a better teaching method, but because she found her teaching method. Setting meaningful benchmarks is crucial. But most people make a critical mistake here. They set benchmarks based on industry standards or competitors' achievements. This is like trying to run a race wearing someone else's shoes. They'll never fit quite right. Instead, create benchmarks that measure your progress against your own past performance. If you're a writer, don't focus on others' word counts. Track how your own daily output improves. If you're in sales, don't obsess over the top performers' numbers. Concentrate on beating your own best month. I remember talking to a personal trainer who transformed his business using this principle. Instead of comparing his client numbers to other trainers, he started measuring something different. His clients' progress relative to their own starting points. He created detailed progress charts for each person, celebrating their individual improvements. His business doubled in 6 months, not because he watched what other trainers were doing, but because he focused on making each client's tomorrow better than their yesterday. He understood a fundamental truth. Real progress isn't about matching someone else's standards. It's about surpassing your own previous best. Here's a practical way to measure progress against yourself. Create what I call a personal growth index. Each month, rate yourself in key areas of your life or work on a scale of 1 to 10. Don't compare these numbers to anyone else's. They're purely for tracking your own growth. This becomes your personal benchmark, your true north. Consider this: when actresses, they don't measure their success by watching other archers. They measure it by how consistently they can hit their own target. Each shot is an opportunity to improve upon their last attempt. This is how you should approach your own growth. The beauty of measuring against yourself is that it keeps you in a state of constant progress. When you stop looking at other scorecards and focus on your own, something remarkable happens. You start competing with the only person who matters, your previous self. A fascinating study of Olympic athletes revealed something surprising. Those who focused on beating their own best times consistently performed better than those who focused on beating their competitors. The same principle applies in every area of life. Your strongest competition isn't the person next to you. It's the person you were yesterday. Remember this: progress isn't always linear. Some days you'll take 2 steps forward, other days 1 step back. But when you're measuring against yourself, every step forward or backward teaches you something valuable. Every failure becomes data. Every setback becomes feedback. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to surpass your previous best. This is the path to lasting success. Not trying to walk in someone else's footsteps, but creating your own trail. When you understand your unique path and measure your progress against your own standards, you tap into a source of motivation that never runs dry. Success leaves clues, and after studying successful individuals for over 3 decades, I've discovered a formula so simple yet so powerful that it transforms lives like mathematics transforms numbers. I call it the growth formula, and it starts with a profound truth. What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. Let me share with you the story of Richard Torres, a small-town insurance agent who transformed his life using this formula. Richard wasn't the smartest in his office, didn't have the best education, and wasn't naturally gifted at sales. But he understood something his colleagues didn't: the power of daily habits. Every morning, without fail, Richard woke up at 4 a.m., not to check emails or rush to work, but to invest in himself. He spent the first hour reading about his industry, studying successful sales techniques, and planning his day. The world is quiet at 5. They told me, and a quiet world lets you hear your own thoughts clearly. Here's the growth formula broken down into its essential parts. Here's the morning power hour. Spend the first 60 minutes of your day feeding your mind. Read something that improves your skills. Listen to educational content. Write down your goals. This single habit, practiced consistently, creates a compound effect that's almost magical. Time management isn't about squeezing more activities into your day. It's about investing your hours wisely. Think of your time like money in a bank. Every hour is $1. Most people spend their dollars on whatever demands their attention first. Successful people invest their dollars in activities that bring returns. If you spend just 1 hour each day learning about your field, that's 365 hours per year. That's equivalent to 9 40-hour work weeks of pure learning. In 5 years, you'll have accumulated 1825 hours of specialized knowledge. This is how ordinary people become experts. I met a woman named Susan who applied this formula to master digital marketing. She wasn't tech savvy at first, but she committed to learning one new thing about digital marketing every day. She didn't try to learn everything at once. Instead, she focused on understanding one concept each day, practicing it and building upon it. The second part of the formula is what I call the 3-block system. Divide your workday into 3 focus blocks. The first block is for your most important work, the tasks that directly contribute to your growth and success. The second block is for responding and reacting, emails, calls, meetings. The third block is for planning and reflection. Most people get this backward. They react all day to others' demands and try to squeeze their important work into whatever time is left. This is like trying to fill a jar by putting the sand in first. There's no room left for the big rocks that matter most. Investment in self-education is the third crucial element of the formula. But here's where most people make a mistake. They wait for their company to invest in their training, or they wait until they have time to learn new skills. Successful people invest in themselves first. Take Thomas, a factory worker who spent $50 each month on books about automation and robotics. His colleagues thought he was wasting money. 5 years later, Thomas was managing the factory's automation department, earning 3 times his previous salary. His investment in self-education paid returns that no stock market could match. Here's a practical way to implement the growth formula. Start with just 15 minutes, that's all. Commit to spending the first 15 minutes of your day learning something new about your field. Read a trade journal. Study a new technique. Master a new skill. Do this for 30 days straight. Next, protect your time like a guard protects a treasure. Learn to say no to activities that don't contribute to your growth. Every time someone asks for your time, ask yourself, will this activity make me better at what I do? Will it move me closer to my goals? Create what I call a growth ritual, a set of daily activities that you perform without fail, just like brushing your teeth. Your ritual might include reading, exercise, planning, or skill practice. The specific activities matter less than the consistency with which you perform them. Remember this. Everything in nature grows according to specific laws. A plant needs water, sunlight, and nutrients to grow. Your success needs daily habits, focused time, and continuous learning to flourish. Skip one of these elements and growth becomes stunted. The beauty of this formula is that it works regardless of your starting point. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or an expert, young or old, educated or not. What matters is your commitment to following it consistently, day after day, week after week, year after year. Knowledge without action is like having a map but never starting the journey. Right now, at this very moment, you have a choice. You can either continue on the same path you've been walking, or you can take the first step toward real, meaningful change. Let me show you exactly how to transform everything we've discussed into concrete action. I'm reminded of Frank Miller, a salesman I met in Detroit. Frank had attended every sales seminar, read every book, and could quote motivational speakers by heart. But his sales numbers hadn't improved in 3 years. Why? Because he was stuck in what I call the knowledge trap, collecting information without implementing it. Then Frank did something remarkable. He took out a blank piece of paper and wrote down just 3 actions he would take every single day, no matter what. Not 20 actions, not 10. Just 3. He called it his non-negotiable 3. First, he would make his 5 most important calls before checking any emails. Second, he would spend 30 minutes studying one successful sale from the previous day. Third, he would write down one thing he learned and one thing he could improve. Within 90 days, Frank's sales had doubled. Not because he learned new techniques, but because he finally started implementing what he already knew. This brings us to the first practical step, simplification. Most people fail to take action because they try to change too many things at once. Here's how to create your own growth system. Start with a blank notebook, your action journal. On the first page, write down 3 areas of your life or work where improvement would make the biggest difference. Not 10 areas, not 5. Just 3. This is your focus list. Next, for each area, write down one specific action you can take daily. These actions must be so simple that they seem almost too easy. Remember this principle. The easier the action, the more likely you are to do it consistently. If you want to write a book, commit to writing 1 page per day. If you want to build a business, commit to making 3 sales calls daily. Let me tell you about Patricia Chen, a graphic designer who transformed a freelance business using this system. Her 3 daily actions: reach out to one potential client before 9 a.m., spend 20 minutes learning one new design technique, and update her portfolio with one piece of work. Simple? Yes. Powerful? Absolutely. Now here's where most people go wrong with implementation. They try to rely on motivation. But motivation is like the weather. It changes unpredictably. Instead, create what I call success triggers, environmental cues that prompt your desired actions. Patricia placed her phone in a different room while working on designs. She set her coffee maker to start at 8:30 a.m., using the smell of coffee as a trigger to make her daily client call. She put her design tutorials on her phone's home screen, making them easier to access than social media. Eliminating distractions isn't about willpower. It's about creating systems. Think of distractions like water. They'll flow into any available space. Your job is to build dams. Start by identifying your top 3 time wasters. Write them down in your action journal. Now, for each one, create a physical barrier. If social media distracts you, delete the apps from your phone. If chatty colleagues break your focus, wear headphones while working. If email constantly interrupts you, turn off notifications and check it only at scheduled times. Here's a powerful technique you call the production hour. Choose 1 hour each day, just when you'll focus entirely on your most important work. During this hour, turn off your phone, close your email, and put a Do Not Disturb sign on your door. This single hour, protected from all distractions, can produce more results than 8 hours of scattered effort. Create what I call an implementation schedule. In your action journal, write down specific times for your 3 daily actions. Don't say, "I'll make calls sometime today." Say, "I'll make calls from 9 to 9. Say, "I'll make calls from 9:30 a.m. When you schedule something, it becomes real. When you leave it vague, it usually doesn't happen. Consider Mark Stevens, the software developer who wanted to create his own app. Instead of waiting for inspiration or the right time, he scheduled 30 minutes of coding every day at 7 p.m., right after dinner. No exceptions, no excuses. 6 months later, his app was complete and generating revenue. Here's another crucial STE. Create accountability through what I call success stakes. Tell someone about your daily actions. Better yet, find an accountability partner who shares similar goals. Meet weekly to review your progress. When we know someone is watching, we're more likely to follow through. Remember this fundamental truth is, action always beats intention. The smallest action taken today is worth more than the grandest intention for tomorrow. Start now, start small, but most importantly, start. Your growth system doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be started. Think of it like planting a garden. You don't need to plant every seed perfectly. You just need to plant them. Nature will take care of the rest. The same is true of your actions. They don't need to be perfect. They just need to be consistent. The greatest reward in life isn't found in the destination. It's found in who you become along the journey. When you focus on your own growth, something extraordinary happens. You don't just achieve success, you transform into someone capable of sustaining it. Let me share with you the story of Helen Martinez, who started as a part-time bookkeeper in 1991. While others in her firm constantly compared themselves to the senior accountants, Helen focused solely on mastering one new accounting principle each week. She didn't know it then, but she was laying the foundation for something remarkable. Year after year, Helen stayed focused on her own growth. She didn't waste energy wondering if she was advancing as quickly as her colleagues. She didn't measure her progress against industry standards. She simply asked herself one question every evening. What did I learn today that makes me better than I was yesterday? Today, Helen owns the largest accounting firm in her state. But here's what's truly remarkable. She'll tell you that the firm isn't her greatest achievement. Her greatest achievement is the person she became through her dedication to continuous growth. The business success is wonderful, she told me, but the real reward is knowing that I can handle any challenge that comes my way. When you focus on your own growth, you develop what I call success, sustainability. It's like building a house on solid rock instead of shifting sand. People who build their success by watching and copying others are always one trend away from failure. But those who build success through consistent self-improvement create something lasting. Take Robert Sheen, a small restaurant owner he met in San Francisco during the challenging economic times of the mid-1990s. While other restaurants were cutting corners and copying each other's cost-saving measures, Robert focused on one thing: making his signature dishes better each day. He spent hours perfecting his recipes, improving his cooking techniques, and training his staff. Other restaurant owners thought he was crazy. You need to watch the competition, they said. You need to follow the trends. But Robert kept his eyes on his own kitchen. 25 years later, those other restaurants are gone. Robert now owns a chain of successful restaurants across 3 states. But real reward, Robert's son told me something powerful. The business success is great, but watching my father never give up, never look sideways, always focus on improvement. That taught me more about success than any business school ever could. Here's what most people don't understand about the reward of self-focus. It compounds over time. Each small improvement you make doesn't just add to your capabilities. It multiplies them. It's like interest in a bank account. Small, consistent deposits made over time create wealth that seems miraculous to others. Consider Sarah Thompson, who started teaching yoga in her garage. While other instructors chased the latest trends and tried to copy popular studios, Sarah focused on understanding her students' needs better each day. She created her own style of instruction, not by watching others, but by paying attention to what worked best for her students. 15 years later, Sarah's approach to yoga is taught in studios worldwide. But ask her about her greatest reward, and she won't mention the money or fame. The real reward, she says, is the confidence that comes from knowing I built something authentic, something true to who I am. This is your moment of decision. Right now, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to the endless cycle of comparison, always watching others, always wondering if you measure up. The other path leads to the reward of self-focus, the deep satisfaction of becoming your best self. The choice is yours, but remember this. 10 years from now, you will surely arrive. The question is where? Will you arrive as someone who spent a decade watching others live their dreams? Or will you arrive as someone who focused on their own growth and achieved things beyond their wildest expectations? Start today. Not next Monday, not next month, not when conditions are perfect. Start right now. Take out a piece of paper. Write down one small action you can take today to improve yourself. Then take that action. Tomorrow, do it again. And again the next day. Remember, the ultimate reward isn't just what you achieve, it's who you become. Every day you spend focused on your own growth is a day invested in becoming someone extraordinary. Every hour you spend improving yourself instead of watching others is an hour that pays dividends for life. The world needs your unique gifts developed to their highest potential. It needs your authentic voice, not an echo of someone else's. It needs your true self, not a copy of another. Your time is now. Your path is clear. Your potential is waiting. The only question that remains is what will you do with this moment?